The gray men came. Leather boots, studded clubs, livid scars, grinning. And in the distance, the children cried. The gray men came, hunting Jews, dark guns, black whips, striking. And closer now, the children cried.
So first thing was they took the intelligentsia, was called to the Gestapo. They took them for 2 days. My father was between them. My father came home, returned home after 2 days, but he was blonde, and after he came home, his hair became white. I imagine he was beaten there to death, so only one part of the physicians came back. The intelligentsia, I mean the doctors, the professors from the high schools, from gymnasium, from the lawyers, the engineers, they all were taken to boats and exterminated. That was the first step.
The first year in 1940 was not much changing. In 1941, we got that so many Jewish people got picked up from the street and sent away. We know about, there was some razzias you looked for, not for husband and wives, you looked the first time only for men, young men.
And they start picking out people who were born in Poland. They keep picking, and they send them, I don't know if you ever heard, they send them on the Polish border, and then they digged holes and they shot them. And they used to say the ground was moving around because some of them didn't die right away.
And convoys started, and we moved towards the Ukraine.
How convoys? Describe what you mean.
Horse and buggy convoys that at first, and after that we were just dropped. Whatever belongings you could carry on your back, you were marching on foot.
So you packed whatever you had out of your house and put it in a horse and buggy?
Right. But that lasted maybe for 1 day. And then to what you could not carry, the people around us, they just took all of that.
The non-Jewish people?
They just grabbed that, and that was their booty to...
So in 1942, I had a summons from the Germans to come to report to the Jewish Community Center. But I didn't go. And I went underground. And I never wore star either. Everybody had to wear a yellow star, you know. And I never wore one. 2 years later, before the war ends, a year before, I got caught. And that was a relief for me because it was like an animal, you know. It's always running around and run away. Be so careful not to get caught.
It was a nice small home. It was away from everybody. We got enough privacy to walk around in the house. See, that was okay. See, but, because after a couple months she say, I like that you stay the whole time here, give us your money, and then you can stay here. So I don't know. See, it can take 2 months, it can take 2 years. What you do when the money is gone? See, I cannot take that. You cannot take the risk, and I want to take the risk. And I paid then for 6 months, and after they paid the 6 months, we were staying maybe not 2 or 3 weeks, and then she told me we get Germans here around, because you cannot stay here anymore. And that was about in December 42. And we was going then up the train, and was going then to Amsterdam, to look for another place to stay.
If somebody helped a Jew and was found out, he was shot. There were some Jews that were fighting in the partisans, and they, of course, were hiding with non-Jewish people. But families to hide Jews was very difficult. Yet it happened. I mean, my stepfather was hiding me. He wasn't very happy about it, but my mother made him.
So they took one part of our town and separated it by a gate and fences. And we have to move. They gave us kind of time. What you can take by your hands on a little wagon, you can go to the ghetto. There were houses, apartment houses, and each apartment, let's say, had four or five bedrooms, so each family got one bedroom.
In an apartment
In
sharing?
apartment sharing. We had to share a kitchen, we had to share the bathroom. Imagine how the women were fighting there when they each put some pot on the kitchen, they were removing those. But it was tough. Very hard to survive. Sicknesses, and you could see people dying on the streets as the time was going forward, see? And every day, the Gestapo with the Ukrainian police used to come into the ghetto and take people away without saying where they go, and they never came back. They used to say, we need you to work. They took them away, and they never came back.
Once America went to war with Japan, the Japanese occupied Shanghai. And we were then indeed confined to a very small area called the ghetto. The Japanese put their ammunition and all the things that the Americans had to go after around the camps where we lived. And that's really, other than disease, how we lost most of our people when the Americans had to bomb certain areas of Shanghai.
When the train stopped in Zagreb, and there were several names called, and my name was called to get out because of being of mixed marriage. But I couldn't get out. The door was locked. So luckily for me, the Germans took over. The Gestapo or soldiers took this whole transport over from the Yugoslavs in Zagreb. And at that point, they pushed 40 approximately more people into that wagon, and the group that was in pushed me out. So I was not free, but I wasn't in the transport. I do not know where the transport went. It went through Germany, but I don't know whether the destination was Poland or Germany, and I have never heard from anybody afterwards. There was never any positive knowledge at that time or at any later time till after the war was over what was happening to the Jews. And nobody knew about the extermination camps.
Then they put us on cattle trains, and we came to Auschwitz. We heard a lot of things, but we didn't know it would be like that.
Were you allowed to take anything with you?
No, nothing. They took everything away from us.
All your family together on one?
All of us came in a cattle train. It was so jammed. You know, you saw the pictures, yes. How it was. It's exactly the way it was. And I remember when the train came into Auschwitz, and the smell, I can't stand that smell, you know, when people used to burn things outside and you smell like a bone or something, that drove me crazy. They took, my mother was fairly young. Oh, she was about 44 years old, and my two little brothers separate, my grandfather separately, and my father and my oldest brother. And then my one brother must have been maybe 10 years old. They took him in a children's camp. And so they got rid of my grandfather out of the way, you know, and my mother and the two brothers. And I saw my father for a minute in Auschwitz. He already had the striped clothes on. And I saw him, I started crying, and because I never been away from home. And the Nazi woman hit me on my shoulder. I still have the mark, you know, because she didn't like it because I cried. And a lot of the people from home said, "You're not home anymore, stop crying," and I just couldn't.
Of course not.
And then that's the last I saw my father.
We moved from this area of Bessarabia through many different towns until we came to the river. It's called Nestor River, that used to be the boundary between Russia and Romania. And we crossed that and we came into the Ukraine, where we were settled in camps and concentration camps. People, but by that time we probably had lost already 30% of the people to disease, beatings, what have you. It was.
Can you guess, I know it's a long time, how many were in this convoy to start with, and how many ended?
Like the people from our town, they were, you know.
The 250 families?
Yeah, that maybe 1,000 people, maybe not that many. By the time we came into the Ukraine, that was where they kept us for 4 years. And there a lot of people perished too, mainly from disease called typhus.
I went on a transport with Anne Frank. She was on the same transport as I do. And we went to Bergen-Belsen. Everybody was sick. There were barracks, there were bunk beds. There were 4 in a bunk bed, 2 upstairs and 2 down. And everybody was sick. I had a girl with me on my bed. She had scarlet fever, and I had diarrhea, and typhus fever.
What happened, they picked me to work in the kitchen, not actually working, just carrying those, it looked like those 30-gallon garbage cans we carried in the barracks. It was nothing but sand and grass, and we carried that for the people. And that's why I got a number on my hand, because from about 28 to 30,000, about 40 people got numbers, and I was one of them.
May we see the
Sure.
numbers?
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you could see it. It goes this way. It was like a square piece, like, you know, like a German bread, like a rock, you know. And I don't remember if we all got a piece or we divided among ourselves. I forgot. It wasn't very much. And a little soup. It was kind of green. It was like grass and sand, and who knows what they put in it to it, you know. And that's what we ate. That's why people got so skinny. I mean, we had 1 stitch of clothes on, and they took that off and they boiled, and we walked around without nothing on, because they looked at us not like people, like animals. You know, we had our heads shaven, everything. Oh, when we came to Auschwitz, they took the earrings out, everything. So you couldn't even hide a piece of jewelry, so they shaved their heads, and we looked like boys, actually.
I had a principle that you don't try to correct things just make the best what there is, but don't try to, like in an army, it's a known thing. You don't volunteer, and when they ask for, you know, that there is, we'll send 100 people to where they will be taken by trucks. But this is a time when you march, God only knows how many miles, and then you will be sent by trucks, and it's a supply depot. Everybody, my gosh, you get food or something. Nothing like that. Nobody ever came back from that much. I had personal friends from way back, and they signed up, and they said, "Don't you want to go?" I said, No, I don't.
foremost thought in everyone's mind, what to do, how to survive, you know, how to obtain sufficient food and not to die from disease.
That survival mode seems to permeate lots of survivors' testimony.
Oh, sure. That was it was so evident to you that even in the worst of periods, that the war is not going to last forever, and that Hitler will not be ultimately victorious. We took on that frame of mind. You couldn't survive. Even if you were kidding yourself, it was desirable that you kid yourself in order to remain optimistic.
You had to have hope.
Absolutely. That in the end, they're going to get him. And we're going to walk away from it.